Krishna Krishna Hare
Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Shivaya Paramahamsa Acharya Astuta Shri Shivaya Divine Grace. Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Radha Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Gopal Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauravatmananda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shaima Kundarana Kundi Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Yamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yagi Ki Jai. Priyatmadam, the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental books Ki Jai. Shri Shri Nitya Bhakta Pavana Gora Hari Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopi Janavalama Ki Jai. ISKCON Farmington Hills Ki Jai. Gora Premanande. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories, Shri Shri Guru Viranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste, Namaste.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Let's try one more time. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I'm going to start with exactly what I always do. May I request everyone who can come forward, please come forward. I understand if you have any medical reasons, you want to sit on the chair, it's perfectly okay. But otherwise, can you all please come closer? No, because a lot of devotees will join later and then we have to disturb the class. To request everyone to come forward. So if you can do it in the first half, it will be really good. Thank you very much. There's still lots of food that we can cover. Okay. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize today's Sunday Feast sponsor. We have Krishna Bandi. So Krishna Bandi is sponsoring for today's Sunday Feast for their child Vidatri Bandi, 6 months Annaprashan ceremony. So right ceremony. So are they here with us today? Okay. So even though they are not here, let's offer gratitude towards their service and offer the special blessings on behalf of Shri Shraddha Gopijan Vallabh Nitapati Gaurani and our dear Shri Prabhupada by one time loudly chanting from bottom of our heart Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Okay, for upcoming programs, So before upcoming program, did everyone enjoy yesterday's color fest? Doesn't look like anyone. Or you're still tired?
Yes.
Okay. So which one is that? The second one? We can still chant one more time. Did everyone enjoy? Good. Okay. There might be little services still remaining. Okay, in order to wrap it up. We need some Prabhujis right after Sunday Peace class, to bring the stage tables back inside the building, right? Which is Prabhu, where you would putting them? In the carpet or up? Okay, we'll work it out. But either him or we will help through this process. That's very important. We don't want our stage to get spoiled, right? Okay. Anyone knows what's the next biggest event we have? It's already there. Shri Krishna Janmashtami. And before that, Balaram Jayanti. So let's talk about very quickly for Janmashtami. It's on Saturday, August 16. We are having celebration. We are having celebration on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a 3-day celebration. Details are getting circulated, flyers are getting distributed. So there's electronic versions already available. So please help us spread the message about these programs and festivities to all your friends, family, colleagues. So we have 3-day celebration with different food stalls, cultural activities, kids competition, Mahabhishek as well. So this is a flyer for Abhishek as well.
Mahabhishek.
Okay, so this is Mahabhishek. It's happening for Janmashtami. So there are different sponsorship opportunities available. If your heart desire, right, this is the time to come forward. We need all different services, all different support, not only your manual support, blessings, and prayers, but also financial. So from financial perspective, there are different opportunities available, different level of Abhisheks available. These are just 2, but the sheet is outside, and Prabhu very graciously maintain the sheet and coordinate the Abhishek activities. So anyone has any question regarding the way they can support financially, please see Harishekar Prabhu, and there's a chart outside. You can put your name as well so that everyone sees that what you are supporting. In addition, just like every year, we are going to be setting up sign-up units for different service opportunities that we have for Krishna Janmashtami celebration. Okay, and Balaram Jayanti celebration flyer is going to be circulated first, because we will have a celebration. Okay. So without further delay, let's request today's Sunday Peace speaker, His Grace Anuttama Prabhu. Prabhuji is direct disciple of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Got initiated in 1976 in Vrindavan. So almost how many years back?
50.
About 50 years back. So Prabhuji has 50 years worth of knowledge, understanding, realization, right? That he is basically sharing with entire community across globe. Right? Prabhuji is serving as a GBC for our temple. So we are all serving under him. So all decisions, planning aspects, Prabhuji is directly blessing and supporting us. And he's also ISKCON International Director of Communication. And Prabhuji is also on the board of Bhaktivedanta College, Belgium, a founder member of Children of Krishna and Rest Vision Team, and actively participates in interfaith initiatives in Washington, DC. And Prabhuji is preaching at the global level. He's with us for about a week now. And he gave multiple talks. And if anyone, did anyone attend Friday's class, which was on devotee relationship? It's very nicely circled around appreciation. If you have not missed, if you have not attended it, you really missed an amazing class. The videos are available. Please go and see. It's amazing. The experience was amazing. And Prabhuji, as I mentioned, he is an international and global director of communication. And today's topic is around the principles of communication. So it's our opportunity, it's an honor to be in this presence. So let's welcome His Grace Anuttama Prabhu by 3 times loudly chanting. Haribo! 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 His Grace Anuttama Prabhu ki jai!
you put this bhajan on the screen, or we don't have capacity for that? Jai Radha Madhava? Not there yet. And everybody can follow along. We'll chat, sing a little more, and then we'll talk about communications. Don't sing those words. There's an expression, right? Technology is great, except when it's not. Jai Radha Madhava, I was surprised. He asked how many of you were here Friday night. We did a whole session on devoted relationships. I only saw like 4 hands come up. Who was here? We pulled them up. Not so many. Okay. That was a really special evening, which we're not going to redo now. I'm just curious. I don't know if that was recorded. I think we recorded everything, or you just broadcast. Oh, really? He just whispered to me. It was on my laptop, but I closed my laptop. Okay, so then we know that wasn't so good that I did that. Okay, so today Yoga Kishore asked me to speak a little bit about communication. So I'm going to read one verse in the Bhagavad Gita where the Lord directly talks about communications, and then just kind of talk about it in terms of some tips how we can all communicate a little bit better. So it's different than a usual talk on Sunday, but we'll try to work in some of our traditional themes. So this is from Bhagavad Gita 17:15, the divisions of faith. This is a chapter name. And, 17 is the chapter, divisions of faith, and we're reading text 15. Anudvega karam bhakyam satyam priyahitam chayat svajaya vyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchate. Translation: austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, always Krishna is saying this is hard to do. Requires some self-control, some self-discipline. Like one of our, we talk about the 4 pillars of religiosity, one of which is austerity or self-discipline. So he's talking about austerity of speech. And we can see, I live in Washington, D.C. What we're going to describe here is not what's coming so much from our nation's capital, sadly, but it should come from our mouths. We have a duty to set a high standard. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others. And also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. Austerity of speech, this is Krishna's advice, and please do this. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others. And also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. Prabhu comments is a short purport here. One should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of the students. But such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. This is a penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. The process of speaking in spiritual circles is to say something upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from the scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. Mahom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Padaya Padaya Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Vinami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurava Manshakacharya Namaste Shri Bhagavan Prasad Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasana Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Rama. So I'm originally from the Detroit area and moved to Colorado many years ago, became involved in the ISKCON Society then, and then moved to Washington, D.C. I was requested to oversee a communications ministry department there. Moved to Washington and been there for a long time, and occasionally get back to the Detroit area. Farmington Hills, so it's a pleasure to be here. Malati, who many of you know, Malati Devi Das is one of Srila Prabhupada's very first disciples, and one of the very first lady disciples, Vaishnavis. She was the GBC governing body commissioner for this area for many, many years, and she retired last year. She's getting up there in age, as we all are. I believe even you guys get older. Use your time carefully. It's not unlimited. So she retired, and then we kind of reorganized everything. So there's a zone of ISKCON. Do any of you know about how many temples there are around the world of ISKCON? Sometimes we think, well, we're members of Farmington Hills. There's a group. Who said that? Who's a smart young man that said that? Yeah, that's about right. We don't have an exact. He said 800. And he's looking at all his friends like, see, I know some. You can know, but don't get puffed up. Knowledge is good, don't get proud. Yes, it's about 800 temples. Because sometimes we think, okay, you know, there's a temple in Farmington Hills. We hear there's one in Grand Rapids. Maybe some of us have been there. We go downtown Detroit sometimes. Okay, maybe we go to New Bern. That's it. We might think like that. But actually, we are members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And as we know, Prabhu started in New York. He tried to kind of redevelop Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition in India, add more energy to it. There was some, after the departure of his spiritual master, there was some splitting of the shared mission. So he was instructed at an early age, actually when he was a very young man, by his guru, to come to the West to preach in English, as others had also gotten that instruction. So we came to New York in 1965, started ISKCON in 1966. We're about to celebrate our 60th anniversary next year of ISKCON. And then from there, from one little storefront, anybody been to 26 2nd Avenue? Put your hands up high. Okay, not so many. New York's not that far away, right? So good reason to go to New York, just like we have a big Rath Yatra Festival in Novi. There's a Rath Yatra Festival down Fifth Avenue. Everybody's heard of Fifth Avenue, right? Possibly one of the most famous streets in the world. Beautiful Rath Yatra Festival. You can go there in New York City, and you can also visit 26 Second Avenue, which was the small storefront where His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada started the movement. And they recently kind of refurbished that whole little temple as it was when Prabhupada was there. Vintage paintings and the whole thing. So if you go there, you'll experience what a humble yet surcharged beginning there was of the Hare Krishna movement just 60 years ago by Prabhupada's grace. So Yoga Kishore Prabhu, he asked me to talk a little bit about communications principles. So in this verse, we're seeing that the Lord himself emphasizes that it's important how we speak, how we listen, how we communicate with each other. Here particularly, it's interesting, again, he points out it has to be truthful, which again is one of our 4 pillars of religiosity. It's said to be the last one, and as we can see, it's going down fast. Just as one example of that, I've mentioned this in many other contexts. I was recently, I think it was in Chicago, and then I saw it in another city, big billboard coming out of the airport with the sign, eternal hair. Now, how does that line up with being truthful? Right? Is there such a thing as eternal hair? No. You can't even get it. I mean, Prabhu, please give testimony. There is my evidence right now. Actually, Prabhu said in just one second. Prabhu said, he said, our movement would be very popular with bald men. So, eternal hair, there's no such thing as eternal hair. You can't live here forever. And, we know the world is full of so much false marketing about different things that you can pursue and like that. And it affects people. People become deceitful in order to gain what they think is some short-term benefit. They become deceitful. But Krishna's pointed out here that actually we should learn to control our speech because, for one thing, it'll improve relationships. We'll talk about that more. But another thing is we're responsible for our behavior. There's karma. It's not just like karma for, killing things. There's karma for that, of course. But just speaking lies, there's karma. So we should be very careful with our speech, and we should, as it's described here, be pleasing, beneficial, and as much as possible, not agitate others. So we see in the world today that because of a lack of good communications, there's a lot of problems. They lead to problems and conflicts between nations. Sometimes whole wars start because things weren't communicated well. They didn't understand the other party's intentions. Problems within the family. I don't know if there's any family therapists here, but usually they really talk about the need for better communications that often leads to problems. I did a little training. I haven't used much of it over the years, but I did a training, something called, I don't remember the name properly. It was like for counseling new people that were going to get married, people that were engaged. And the whole thing was focused around how to get them to communicate with each other better. And actually, I just explain this for a minute. Marriage Sailors was the book that I read about it, but then I took this few-hour course. But one of the things they do, they have potential couples take like a survey and answer a bunch of questions. So you're with the priest or the minister or whatever, and you answer questions. How do you like to spend your money? How much time should you spend with your parents? What kind of vacations do you like? What's your favorite food? Whatever. So they take this survey, and then you come back like a week or two later, you meet the minister, the priest, whatever. They never tell you what the actual scores are. It's not like they come back and say, oh, you're really compatible. You get a 92%. Congratulations. They don't say that. But it's designed so the person who gets the test back, he or she will say, it's really, I noticed here that you both like the, bicycle ride and take vacations on bikes. And they're like, yeah, we both love that a lot. That's great. And you're both pretty frugal with money. That's a good thing. Oh, yeah, we're both really careful. But I noticed that she seems to want to spend a lot more time with her mother than he's inclined to do. And of course, she'll turn to him and judge him. They'll go through a few minutes. And on the way out, what typically happens, it could be her or him, I'm just making it. On the way out, she's like, I thought you liked my mother. And thus the whole communication begins. The whole thing is to help increase communications. And they, according to this book that had studied this, there was one city where they get all the priests, all the rabbis, all the imams, all the ministers, they all agreed to use this premarital counseling method. What were the numbers? I think, if I remember correctly, 15% of the marriages called it off after this counseling. 15%. Because they realized we're not compatible. But they found over a few years, the divorce rate went down by 50%. Because people were getting married, they never communicate with each other. They just assumed everything was okay. And then later on, when big problems come up, they don't know how to communicate with each other, and they just fester and grow worse and worse and worse. So that's just like one practical example of how important communications is. So I'm going to talk about a few principles that can help all of us improve our communications, whether it's with your boss, or with your employees, with your neighbor, with your kids, with your parents. That's a tough one, right? It's tough to communicate with parents sometimes. He's keeping poker face. I'm watching. The other boys are like smiling like, yeah. He's like, I don't know who's watching on camera. I'm not going to smile. So five principles we teach in our communications ministry. But I'll start with this one. I borrow from Dr. Stephen Covey. Some of you may have heard of Stephen Covey. He wrote a lot of books about leadership. I had the good opportunity to present him a Bhagavad Gita many years ago. He's passed away a few years ago. And he talks about whatever we do, we should begin with the end in mind. So I would say that's the first thing with communications. Yes. He could have said you need to raise the mic, but he's being a little subtle here. All right, but hopefully can you hear better in the back? I should have asked. Okay, very good. So he teaches this principle. Begin with the end in mind. Very important to stop ourselves before we speak to others, or body language. Body language is a whole important subset. But think about what's the goal. So let's say, you want your kids to make their bed before they go to school. So you can say it in a way that will influence them to get what you want done. But you need to remember what's the end, okay? Is the end, I'll be frank here, is the end to have them make their bed, or is the end to have a loving relationship with your child? If the end is to have a loving relationship with your child, even though you had a rough morning and there's a lot of pressure, and who knows, you lost your job yesterday, whatever, sometimes bad things happen. But if you keep in mind the end result is to have a positive relationship with my child, the way you speak to them may be different than just thinking the end result is to let my anger feel better. Isn't it? If the end result working with your employees is that they're inspired to be more productive and to be more happy and to be more committed to the office or wherever they're working, if that's the goal, you're going to treat them much differently than you think the goal is for me to control everybody in this office. And because of our false ego, means a false sense of who we are, we may think I'm the controller of this office. But that doesn't jive with Krishna's teachings. It doesn't match with Vaishnava tradition. It doesn't match with Bhakti, where we understand I'm actually a servant. I'm actually a servant. We'll talk more about that later. So begin with the end in mind. It's really important. Because a lot of, just like, okay, give an example like social media, or however we do it these days, video or whatever. So many times, let's use the example of email, old technology these days. But so you see something online, or somebody sends you a comment, and we don't like it. So immediately we I think this is like one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. I can't believe she said this. What right does she have to say that? And he shouldn't have done this. And that just shows he's accomplished the whole thing. Copy everybody, send. And then a minute later, you get a message from somebody 5,000 miles away. Gosh, this is exciting. What happened? Tell me more. And you're like, how did you find out, right? And then next thing you know, the person you were writing about gets word, and their friend told them, and it's a big mess, right? Because we weren't thinking, well, what's the end in mind? Okay. If the end in mind is to release your emotions, turn off the computer and hit the keyboard as much as you want. So you feel better, right? But if the end, we have to think, what's the end result going to be if I push send? Or if I send this video clip that's going to go around and it's just going to make things worse, I should be conscious that we should, as described here, austerity, self-discipline. This isn't going to help. In fact, something I remember reading a book years and years ago, like the German army had a policy. You couldn't send a complaint letter within 24 hours of the event. You had to pause. Because we know as soon as, within a half an hour, if something happens you're upset about, you're going to describe it in very vivid language. I am trying this. It's like asking AI, send a nasty letter that shows I'm angry. I bet they could do a wonderful job. Right? But we wouldn't want to send that. Right? They could come up with so many wonderful descriptive words. So in the same way, don't send a letter for 24 hours. Don't say something, even if you're upset about something. Maybe you don't call somebody for 24 hours. Give it a little bit of time, because usually what happens is all the emotional things we want to say, like I'm so upset, or this was stupid, or this was hurtful, those become, I'm having trouble understanding the motive. Instead of, you made the dumbest mistake I've ever seen, I can't believe you did it, you must be really foolish, becomes 24 hours later, I'm having trouble understanding what motivated you to take that action. Right? It's a whole different kind of communications. And again, when we send the emotional, the hurt feeling, whatever, it can just add to the conflict. So sometimes one little email, one little voicemail, or some little communication can damage relationships for years. I mean, again, if there's any family therapist, so we know sometimes the way the father spoke to the child, the way the mother spoke to the child can have damage to people for years. People, as adults, it's like, they get somehow I was reading some book recently about marriage relationships, and they were kind of going through different scenarios, and each and every one of them, he was basically trying to find out from the man who's having trouble in the relationship, how did your dad treat you? Did your father yell at you? If your father yelled at you, that affected your sense of self-worth, blah, blah, blah. You're taking out your wife, you're taking out your kids, or, etc. So the way we speak to each other, including adults and children, can have a big effect. So begin with the end in mind. What's the long-term goal? Is it just to release my emotions? Probably not. So let's stop and think about what are more important. And then the 5 principles we teach in communications is first, whatever we do, we communicate should be in line with the teachings and example of Srila Prabhupada. So that's especially true those of us who are members and friends of the Hare Krishna movement, because we look to him for the example. And we know Prabhupada was so compassionate, very kind, very selfless, and very concerned about how others would understand what he said. Sometimes he was very firm, but oftentimes he's very, very flexible. There's one story of a disciple that told Prabhupada they wanted to do something that was against everything we stand for. I don't remember the details, but something like that. And Prabhupada didn't correct him. And then later, a devotee was in the room, said, Prabhupada, why didn't you say anything to him? He said, because he was already determined to do it. He's going to get a karmic reaction for that. If I told him not to, he would have the added offense of violating the instruction of the spiritual master and the founder Acharya. So again, the end in mind. What's the long-term goal? So we look to Srila Prabhupada as our example. And one thing within that, we see how flexible Prabhupada was. I mentioned this morning, I think, or maybe last night, about Prabhupada in his interactions with the first landlord of his temple, 22nd Avenue, where he was helping him do the most menial tasks, although he was an elderly gentleman and a spiritual teacher. So everything we should ask ourselves, would Prabhupada do like this? Just like a few years ago, there was a kind of a trend among our Christian friends. They would say, what would Jesus do? And we should ask ourselves, what would Prabhupada do? Would Prabhupada speak like that? Would Prabhupada act like that? Would Prabhupada interact with other people like that? How would he handle it? We should look to that. Next one, communications principles, how to communicate better with people. Always try to understand what's the time, place, and circumstance. What worked yesterday doesn't necessarily work today. What worked, all the parents know this, what worked with your elder child doesn't necessarily work with your younger child. Everybody's an individual. What things that you can say to your friends in wherever, Bengal, Gujarat, wherever, don't necessarily work with your friends in Troy. It's a different time, place, and circumstance. We have to be aware of the situation in order to do that. Be ready to modify the way we communicate. Next, third one, we should be proactive. And I asked, can we find somebody taking notes on this again? Because this is, again, it's not your typical Sunday talk, and hopefully you go away feeling inspired. This is like some specific things we would hope people would try to remember. So somebody's taking some notes and we're going to share them with everybody. Okay, good. Be proactive, not let problems fester. If there's a disagreement in the office, again, maybe sometimes we let it wait a few hours or a day or two, but don't let problems build up and up and up. If you want to communicate effectively with people, even they talk about that in terms of giving feedback to employers. You don't want to wait until problem after problem after problem, and then you have like, a 6-month review. You tell them that basically you're a lousy employee or fired. Dramatize a little bit there. But you need to talk to them on a regular basis. Of course, reinforcing the positive, but also help them understand we need to do better. Not that you save it up and you just explode one day with your employees or your neighbors or your friends or your kids or your parents even. We should be proactive. Next one is that we should think of mutually beneficial relationships. Now, in the communications ministry, we specifically talk about these things in terms of something I'm not going to talk a lot about, but key audiences. Who are those people that can help us in our mission and hurt us in our mission? So it might be the neighbors, it could be the government, it could be academics, it could be other Hindu communities, it could be interfaith organizations, it could be scholars, it could be donors, it could be temple residents, it could be the media, it could be so many different things. How do we understand how there's mutual benefit? But in our own communications with people, the tendency of this world is we're caught up in our body and our mind and what our particular needs are. And that's what keeps us here. Because we understand in the spiritual realm, everybody's caught up, or their minds are focused, they're spiritual, and they're focused on pleasing God, pleasing Krishna. You come here when you want to try to live selfishly. Prabhupada even uses the term extended selfishness, which is kind of like an oxymoron, because if you're selfish, you only think about yourself. He says extended selfishness. It's not just my body. Maybe it's like the few people around me. It's like a few friends. Maybe it's my family only, or my neighborhood. I don't care about the other neighborhood. Geez, there was a terrible flood yesterday. The other neighborhood flooded. So many houses got destroyed. Wow, good thing it wasn't mine. Right? Or, some bombs fell yesterday, killed 5,000 people. Boy, good thing it wasn't. Did they land in my country? No, okay, that's good. Let's go play baseball. Watch a movie, go shopping, as long as it's not us. So that's extended selfishness. So we want to try to think in terms of win-win, how we can communicate, always thinking how will it be mutually beneficial? How is it beneficial for them as well as us? So as an example of that, let's say, for instance, using this key audience principle, let's say the temple decides that we want to have a Rath Yatra down one of these back streets, a neighborhood street or something like that. So, but the city says you have to get a petition, and they have to, all the people on that route have to sign a piece of paper. So I can go to them and knock on the door, see name Smith on the door, say, Mrs. Smith, would you please sign this petition? Because we want to have Rath Yatra Festival, which means the Lord of the universe is going to go down the street in front of your house and purify all the conditioned souls from their materialistic conceptions and contaminations. And simply by the glance of Lord Jagannath, everyone is going to be benedicted, even for the most heinous sins, which you probably do, which includes meat eating. I noticed there's a few bottles on the shelf. You probably intoxicate yourself now too. And if you sign this, because I'm actually in competition with Bishop Das to see who can get the most signatures. If I get more signatures, the temple president will appreciate me more. I'm going to get a special Maha plate tomorrow. They're going to mention the name of the Sunday feast. Now, is Mrs. Smith going to sign my petition?
No.
No. Okay. Aside the fact that there's a crazy guy asking her to sign something at the door, besides she knows I'm crazy, why will she not sign it? In terms of what we're talking about here. I'm talking about me, right? What we're going to describe in a minute, my needs, interests, and concerns. I'm not speaking about hers. So put that aside, but I'll come back and talk about this what we call the secret mantra, needs, interests, and concerns in a minute. But we need to look at mutual. There was nothing in my presentation that benefited her. It was all about me. Why is she going to sign that? So we need to think about what's going to be of interest to them. And just to complete this example, we can explain to Mrs. Smith, we're going to have a wonderful cultural festival. Of course, we have to tell the truth. Krishna says right here, truthful. We never, ever, 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 ever should not tell the truth. But we can explain things in a way that she understands, right? Just like you have a young child says, Mommy, I want dessert. You will have dessert, but first you got to finish your veggies, right? You're going to be truthful. You're not going to have them finish their veggies and then not get dessert, but they're going to get dessert after the veggies. You got to be truthful, okay? Mutually benefit. You eat the veggies for me, you get the dessert for you, okay? Mutually. So the same way we can say to the neighbors, knock, 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 Mr. Smith. We're hoping that you sign this petition. We want to have a wonderful cultural event for the benefit of the neighborhood. It's going to be a great opportunity for everybody to come out, meet some of your neighbors. It's going to be very colorful. There's going to be a free feast. We enjoy you to come and participate with us. We're going to have face painting for all the kids. We're going to have a stage with musical entertainment that we think you'll enjoy. We're going to have special security to make sure nobody parks any cars on the streets, so no one will be blocking your driveway, etc. And it's an opportunity for you and the whole family to just kind of eat out for free, to cook next Tuesday. So I'm trying to speak in terms of what her needs are. Okay, you might even say, I noticed a couple bicycles. It seems you got a couple kids. It's going to be special events for the children, blah, 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 blah. So it's the same event, but I'm presenting it in terms of what's beneficial for her. So we need to kind of train ourselves to think like that. And then the fifth of these 5 primary principles, they need to practice Vaishnava qualities, humility, trustworthiness, and exemplary behavior. If we want to communicate with others, if we want to influence others, we want to express ourselves to others, it's got to be based on trustworthiness. If somebody says, please, if the mom says, eat your veggies, I'll get you dessert, you don't get dessert, after 2 or 3 times, you're not going to believe her anymore. There's something going on. You can go to dad, or at least, if the neighbor's here, well, we're going to have a big festival. We promise it's going to shut down at 9 o'clock, so you can take, and it goes till midnight, right? They're not going to sign that petition next year, etc. So making sure Vaishnava qualities. Then I want to go back to this, what I mentioned earlier. We do say, we use this term, our secret communications mantra, just like for our spiritual purification of the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, the Panchatattva mantra, which we evoke the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, helps overcome any offenses in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. In communications, we have this mantra: needs, interests, and concerns. We're going to communicate with another person. We need to understand their needs, interests, and concerns. Just when I talk to Mrs. Smith, I need to understand, okay, Mrs. Smith wants to make sure her property is protected. She'd probably like to meet some of her neighbors. It's a cultural event. People like cultural events. They want to have things for the kids. Wow, free food. I don't have to cook. I kind of tried to hit all the buttons is what's important for her. Whereas, Lord Jagannath, Benedictine, all the conditioned souls and Guru being pleased didn't do much for her. Because that was all about my needs, interests, and concerns. Another example is one a little bit closer to home. Let's say that Yuga Kishore Prabhu has an announcement. So we'd like the whole community to go downtown and join us on Belle Isle next week. We have a big Harinam event. And I want everybody to come because the GBC and Anuttama, the global governing body, said, whichever temple president gets the most number of people to go out, they're going to get a special all-expense paid trip to Mayapur and Vrindavan. Hugo Kishore tells us. And I'd really like to go to that. And not only that, they're going to announce their name at the stage in front of the deeds. And not only that, they're going to put my name in the Back to God magazine. I've never been in Back to God magazine. I expect all of you to come. Now, you're probably already thinking of excuses why you're not going to make it. Because it's all about what I'm making it up, but it's all about what Yugo Kishore needs, okay? Now, opposed to that, if Yugo Kishore comes and says, Prabhu's, Mataji's, Vaishnavas, friends, devotees, yes, we're going to have a wonderful celebration next weekend. It's an opportunity for all of us to come together, have a lot of fun, and make a lot of spiritual advancement. We all know Prabhupada emphasized the chanting of the holy name. It's a chance to do that. We've made special arrangements. We rented a bus, a fancy luxury bus to take us downtown. It's all expense paid. You just have to stop here. And the thing is a special arrangement for the ladies with kids. We know sometimes it's hard to fit your strollers in this, but there's a big space for that to bring the children. And we worked everything out with the police, so there won't be any kind of problems with, anybody who doesn't appreciate we're down there. We've got all approval from the city and all that. We have invited His Holiness Satchidananda Swami and Niranjan Swami, who are coming here all the way from wherever they are to lead the kirtan for all of us. And any of you that do service in the morning, we've got it all covered. We have devotees from Grand Rapids that will cover all the morning service. So if you're up late, you don't have to come to Mongol Arti, if you're not able to. And for everybody to go, there's going to be pizza and ice cream and whatever else you want. Fill in the blank when we get back. Anybody want to go? All the hands went up front. These guys go asleep until then. Needs, interests, and concerns. You talk to kids about prashadam, it's like, well, thank you very much for that. That's good. So it's an example, but it's true like with the neighbors or with ourselves. If you understand what's important to me, then you're going to get my buying, you're going to get my enthusiasm for that. And if it's simply a question of you should do this because I want it, that doesn't sit very well with us. Even in devotional service, we're trying to become selfless, but we want to make spiritual advancement. So if someone tells us how this is good for my spiritual advancement, this is good for our community, and then I'm inspired to be part of it. So understanding this is a very important thing. And I'll end with one other point, and then we'll see if maybe there's some questions for discussion. Let's say I'm having a conversation with Yugo Kishore Prabhu, and I'm speaking, and he's listening. Who's in control of the conversation, or let's say the communication? I'm speaking, and he's listening. Who's in control? Yugo Kishore. How is he in control? I'm doing all the talking. How's he in control? Good. It looks like the person speaking is in control, but there's no communication if the listener doesn't listen. Just like, let's say you all own a big radio station. Maybe you get the biggest radio station in Michigan. You can broadcast all the way to outside of the state, all the way to Florida. Powerful, whatever they have for sending radio messages. Very powerful, okay? And you think, wow, I'm really communicating. But nobody turns in the dial to where you are. How's your communications? Zero, right? So you can yell, but nobody hears you, you're not communicating. Or you can yell, but if nobody wants to hear you, you're not communicating. Or if you don't speak in terms of my needs, interests, and concerns, then I'm not going to tune in. So understanding the needs, interests, and concerns of our kids, if that's who we're trying to communicate with, or our neighbors, if that's who we're trying to communicate with, or our employees, if that's who we're trying to communicate with. If someone realized my needs, interests, and concerns with some water, thank you. I didn't even ask. It's a Chinese person. Did a Chinese person get this? I was in China once. It was really hot. I was giving a talk, and I said, I need some water. And they brought me a cup of like boiling hot. I said, what is this? You know, they have some very well-developed systems of medicine, and one of their edicts, whatever, is when you're thirsty, you should drink hot water. And I'm used to like, hey, it's American. If you're cold, you get ice water. This is like, I couldn't do that. This is lukewarm water. So maybe they're not from China. They're from like the Philippines or something. Somewhere in between. So we should keep that in mind. Because we all have important things to communicate to others, whether it's, again, it's at work, we want to make sure the employees understand. You know, it's our neighbors, we want them to really understand, I don't appreciate you blocking my driveway. When your kids come home and park the car, whether it's, you know, your spouse, I really appreciate it if you know, put your dirty socks in the hamper, don't leave them on the floor, whatever it may be. You know, fellow devotee, I'd really appreciate it if you could come earlier when we both dress in deities, because there's too much for me to do tonight by myself when you come late. If we try to think in terms of their needs, interests, and concerns, what's of interest to them? Like for instance, okay, just give an example. Somebody else is coming to help dress the deities late. To be able to express that I know both of us and you, we're here to try to make, you know, spiritual advancement and please the deities. And do a nice job dressing. I know first and foremost, you want to make sure that the deities are dressed nicely. And sometimes when you come late, it means that both of us were kind of rushing. And I noticed the net result of that is the deities aren't dressed as nicely. Remember two days ago that nobody put the crown on Krishna. No, so it'd be good if we could both figure some system out, how we can both help each other make sure we're on time. As opposed to like, you know, this is the 5th time in a row you've come late. I'm fed up. Blah blah blah. You know, it's like, okay, it's all about me. You know, I. So good things for us to keep in mind. And as devotees, just to kind of put it in the context of bhakti, as devotees will understand, as Krishna explains something about Gita, he's trying to tell Arjuna, you should learn to do everything for me. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer, give away. He says, as well as any austerities you perform should be done as an offering to me. So that includes our communication. And we're gradually understanding that although this world kind of tries to tell me you're the boss, right? Like all the ads for automobiles, you know, like to show a guy in a fancy sports car driving on the road, nobody else on the road, of course. It's just him and the highway, zooming down with his 5-speed car like you are the enjoyer. Right? The fact is, there's always a traffic jam. And he's not going 105 miles an hour, he's going 35 miles an hour because there's construction. You know, but they present this thing, you can be in control. You are the controller, you are the enjoyer. Buy this product, buy this dress, buy this suit, buy this that. But we're understanding by the grace of our acharyas, by the grace of the scripture, and our own practical experience, it doesn't always work out that way. And the reason is because, as Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna says, Krishna, this is a really bad situation. I got relatives on both sides. If I win the battle, I need to kill all of those people. I don't want to do that. If I lose the battle, all the relatives on this side are going to die. I don't want that to happen, so I'm just going to quit. It basically says like that. Kind of has a nervous breakdown. It says the Gandiva bow slipping from my hands, and I'm just going to leave. Krishna tells him, actually, that won't solve your problem. Because by nature, you're going to have conflicts with other people. You're a warrior. There's always going to be conflicts. In that case, he told him that the other people, we tried everything possible to achieve peace. Is not possible. You need to perform your duty. So the same thing, our philosophy does not say stop being involved in the world, but understand how to offer whatever we do for the pleasure of Krishna. And when we do that, actually, we're happy. Because we're always servants, Vaishnava tradition teaches. Right now, in a bodily concept of life, the eyes are making demands, the nose are making demands, the sense of touch is making demands, the sense of ego. You know, I want to be big man, or I want to be a beautiful woman known for my beauty, my influences. Those, we're serving those demands, but they don't satisfy us. It's just not enough. So Krishna says, if you serve me, then we'll actually be satisfied. So in that mood, we should try to engage our communications, our speaking, our listening, all the ways of communicating, whether it's our children, our wife, our husband, our employees. And if we do that, then instead of competing with each other, they're trying to be in the center, we understand that, and Prabhu says in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, we should read this at least in theory. We should theoretically accept Krishna's God, but then let me try to see if it works. That he gives a simple example. If we're all around some body of water, we throw rocks in the water. If we all throw our rocks in different places, the waves, the ripples are gonna collide. But if we have the same center point, somebody throws a big rock, a small rock, a round rock, a sharp rock, a blue rock, a green rock, all those different expressions of individuality, because they have the same center point, then they coincide nicely. They don't lose their identity. I still send out ripples, you send it, but they'll work harmoniously. So the same way, if we try to understand and practice that Krishna's in the center of all the communications, we try to communicate in a way that's pleasing to God, pleasing to all of God's parts and parcels, which means everybody else, every living entity, then we'll be satisfied, and Krishna will be satisfied, and the world will be a lot more peaceful. If people just learned how to speak words that are truthful, if they try. So oftentimes these days, people didn't want to try. It really seems like this competition, who can lie the best? It's one thing when you're 9, when you're a parent, or when you're running a company or a country, which is not the way to be. We should look for words, try to practice words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others. And also regularly recite Vedic literature. So those are a few thoughts about communications. You be sure. I hope that was what you were looking for. A few thoughts on that. This is actually part of some highlights from a 4-day seminar that is taught in ISKCON circles around the world. And in that seminar, we get into a lot of detail how to actually communicate with the media, how to communicate with the government, how to communicate with academics, etc. So we get into a lot more detail in practice. We actually practice. We have devotees sitting with a microphone in front of the camera, video them, how you communicate well with the media and all that, and then play it back and get feedback. So these are just some highlights, and hopefully you found something that's helpful. And we can stop. Any questions? We have time for questions or comments? Yes. Okay, over there and then over here. Yes. Hi, Krishna.
Thank you so much for this class. This was really nice and amazing. I'm actually a child and family therapist.
Oh, good.
So
We need more of you.
it's a very difficult job, especially, and I can see this in my work, but I can see it in like home life. I can see it in like temple environments too. When, like you mentioned, we should focus on the needs, interests, and concerns of the other person and not just explode and sort of take time to think
Yes.
and speak accordingly with their needs, interests, and concerns in mind. Sometimes, even when we do that, there's no conversation, it's just speaking, and then there's a wall. And in that situation, how do you proceed, and how do you make it a conversation, encourage, either reply, like I see it a lot with my family therapists, my clients, the parents will try to speak to the kid and the kid will just shut them down because of their history, because of the toxic or unhealthy communication they've had in the past. So how do you encourage that conversation instead of just wall?
That's a great question for me to ask you with your 4 years of college training and so many years of clinical experience. Because that's a deep one when people just shut down. I'll just say one thing, and please seriously add to that. They write whole books about that, right? How to talk so that your children will listen, and listen so your children will, something like that. So a lot of times, it gets into a whole bunch of stuff, but I know one part is reflective listening. We have to practice reflective listening, which is, okay, again, Yuko Kishore comes to me and says, Anuttama, I really like that class, except you talk too long and you didn't give relevant examples and something else. So I may like what I hear, I may not like what I hear. But I need to pause and say, okay, if I understand you correctly, you thought I spoke too long and that I should use more relevant examples and something else. By at least listening to him and repeating it in my own words, it opened room for conversation. Okay. So I had an experience the other day, something happened, whatever. It's there in every relationship, with friends or family members, to take that moment and just to reflect. With kids, that's more of a science, and I'll let you speak on that a little bit. But at least with our close associates at work or in the temple or certainly within our marriages, to take the time okay, I may not agree with any of it. That's not the point. It may be completely wrong. There may be so many things that she or he doesn't understand, but to take the time of repeating what we've heard. Because a lot of times we repeat back, and then they'll say, well, actually, it wasn't so much that you spoke too long, it was some, they'll clarify it. And the fact that I put out the effort to listen, it shows I value them. I don't have to agree with them to value them. A lot of relationships break down, a lot of problems come because people don't feel valued. So, and a lot of times they talk about too, just having somebody listen to me means so much. So those are just my quick reflections. Do you want to add something? Because it's an important topic.
I feel like when it comes to children and they've had that history of sort of unhealthy communication or just they're not heard, it's exactly what you said. They have felt unheard, for 15 years. And then at age 15, the parents are bringing them in for therapy saying, I want to talk to you. I want to communicate with you. I want to have a better relationship. The child is sort of stuck.
The child is stuck because they've had 15 years of other experiences.
Yes.
And why should we trust you just because you're paying this person $100 an hour and now you're going to pretend like you're yeah. Right.
Yeah. So part of that is addressing that and acknowledging that, yeah, we've not had the greatest communication and acknowledging this is where I've fallen short and this is why and that's where actually now that I think about it, that's where the needs, interests, and concerns come in because this is my needs, interests, and concerns that I want to have a better relationship with you because going into adulthood, I want you to be able to take care of me. I don't want to grow old and not have support. Do you want this relationship to get better? And generally the children do say yes because they love their parents as all children do. And then that's where that conversation of, okay, what do you want out of this relationship?
10% discount, any members of the congregation can get an appointment with her right now. Just like right now. Thank you, that's very helpful. We have time? Okay, yes, please.
So, it was an amazing class. Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful subject on communication because it's, as you said at the beginning of the class, there are so many problems that really arise because of this lack of proper communication. It just seems simple from outside, like, for example, nectar of devotion, the 10th quality of Krishna. It says that he's an expert in speaking or communication. But for us, we need so many classes to learn and understand. And you spoke about the 5 broad principles. And I'm just trying to see how difficult it is actually to even implement some of the things you said. Like if you take the win-win thing, that can be done in terms of negotiation, in terms of it can become manipulative, it can become calculative, like how it can be a win for the other person, unfold, and versus something which is empathetic, which is genuine or deep concern, touching the heart of the others, as well as doing that kind of win-win requires maybe a real spiritual development and Krishna consciousness.
True, and it requires some detachment. As you're speaking, I'm thinking, the example of, I read some books on salesmanship years and years ago, and the man who was like the best closed salesman in a certain area, and gave an example. Somebody came and said, I need such and such a suit, and he said, well, we don't carry those, but our competitor down the street does. And the man was like a little surprised. The customer's like, well, because normally they try to sell you something else. But he said, well, no, you want this, you know what you want, and you have to go down there. So next time the guy needs a suit, who's he going to go see? See this guy because he really takes my interest in life. Or if you go to buy a car, you walk in, you want to buy a $10,000 car, and you walk out with a $15,000 car. Do you feel good about that? When you had 10,000 to spend, or you had 20, you spend 30, you had 30, you spend 40. Like they say that nobody wants to be said, you don't go home from shopping and say, look what I was sold. Right? look what I was sold. No, you want to say, look what I bought, look what I was interested in getting. So, and I personally think this is one of the things I just read the other day, Prabhu talked about, if a certain percentage of people become God conscious, the whole world can change. So, if there's like a painting contractor and he cuts corners and he promises to this, but not that, and he doesn't show up for work in the day, you don't use him again. You're like, we're a honey, right? Everybody, if you just had just imagine if we all knew an honest auto mechanic, how much better life would be, right? I mean, my gosh, somebody you can trust, you don't know what he's doing when he gets under the hood there, right? So if devotees, we have auto mechanics and we have lawyers and we have family therapists and we have teachers. If we bring that into our life, that actually I'm doing this for Krishna. So I could cheat you left and right. You don't know what you need, you know what you want, but I'm under. You came to me for this, whatever it was, legal service, whatever, financial services. I'm going to do the very best I can for you because I'm actually offering this to Krishna. I'm going to try to help you, but in the back of my mind, I'm not going to cheat you. I'm not going to miscommunicate. I'm not going to overcharge. I may even go out of my way to tell you, like this clothes salesman, actually, you better out down the street. If people live like that, life in this world, I mean, as it is now, we all know, when you turn on the news, I find myself just over the last few years, like you listen to the news, my first thought is like, do I believe that? Isn't it? I mean, what kind of, we live in a country that prides itself on freedom and all these things, but the culture is under attack. And if you get I don't know who I believe anymore. Well, we should at least make sure they can believe the Vaishnavas. We can't control other people, but we have control over me. And starting today forward, as Krishna said, I should be truthful, I should be pleasing. We're all going to make mistakes. We're fallen conditioned souls, but we should try for that ideal. And the way we interact with our kids and with our family, with our parents, with our siblings, with our neighbors, and people start seeing, wow, here's a different example. It's good for us, and it sets a different example for people, rather than saying everybody does it. Right? Well, everybody does. Everybody breaks this law. Everybody breaks this, but we don't do it. I'm not going to do it.
Thank you, Prabhu. As a follow-up to that, this is not a frivolous question. You had mentioned, when you reply back to an email at work, sometimes delayed by 24 hours, so that the emotions and all those things is gone. But my thing, I'm not trying to ask this in a frivolous way, but at home,
It's harder.
Yes. Yes. You can delay for 24 hours.
Well, she's a therapist. She probably tells people at least count to 24. Yeah. Count to 10. If you can't do 24, she says 10. She's more kind than I am. I said 24. She was. Yeah. They talk about being, this is another Covey thing, responsible. Being responsible. We have time to respond. Right? We may respond with an instant harsh word or instant anger, or in some very unfortunate situation, instant violent act against other people. But we should instead, we have the ability to respond, to take the time, to put a little pause in there. And it's an important thing. We're meant to be, everyone should, as devotees especially, a little reflective about the impulses that are coming from my mind and my senses and my tongue and different like that. So we should try to become Goswami, right? We're studying for the Goswamis, master of the senses, which means even though I feel angry, I don't express anger. I feel hurt, I don't express pain. I feel like punching a wall, I don't punch the wall. There's other ways of expressing myself that are more beneficial. Is that okay? Okay, so we're going to stop now. Yes. Sorry, I don't. The sign language. I'm not sure what this is. I never took that course in college. Any sign language experts over here? We heard from the therapist. We need a sign language.
I said I have an announcement once you're done.
Okay, so am I done?
Any other question? Anyone has any other question?
Announcements.
Thank you very much for coming. Only announcement is, I think, Pro must have made. In 2 weeks, we have the biggest festival coming in March. You know, so you all know we attract at least 5,000 to 6,000 people, and we give announcement to the second countries. So many services, and that we do it every year. So we request you to pick up the services, so that we are ready to serve 5,000 to 6,000 people. Actually. Yeah. Thank you very much for the help you did yesterday in the Color Festival. And I'm sure how many of you attended the Color Festival yesterday? Thank you.
You got 100% up here.
So I'm making this request because this time is very short, and we have only 2 weeks left. Less than 3 weeks actually. So it's 15, 16, 17. We are celebrating also on Friday. We also celebrate actual festival is Saturday. I think in the recent past, this is the first time the festival is coming on Saturday. It means that this is one of the main reasons I have taken the microphone actually. Usually the festival comes on weekdays and we are geared up to serve people in the evenings. But it's the first time, in at least in 7, 8 years, it's coming on Saturday and the whole people will be coming. You all remember, because I think because of the enthusiasm we exhibited in serving the flyers, Monday attracted 4,000 people last time. This Grand River Avenue was, had a traffic jam, helicopter came. If that is true on Monday, my worry is what will happen on Saturday. So that's the reason I'm making this announcement. So we should be ready and geared up to serve this many thousands of people. Of course, needless to say, our temple is small. That's why my humble request to all of you is, please, get into Sign Up Genius and choose your services so that we'll be able to identify those areas that need more manpower, and and fill it up with additional resources. And last and least, please don't travel that weekend to New York and any other places. So this is our temple and we need to serve each other. And Prabhu, has been traveling. He told me on Friday, traveled in the state 2,300 miles to Canada, back and forth, different areas, to try temple and sing Grand Rapids. And again, tomorrow is going to back to DC. And he has shared us his wisdom, that he has been sharing with people all over the world past 5 decades. We are very grateful to for his presence. And how many of you like the Friday program? Those of you. So those of you who missed it, I'm sorry, but it is available. The recording is available. So I've been watching him in action in different areas. Definitely an amazing speaker. So we're very grateful for your presence. Any offenses happened during this trip, please forgive us. But we're very grateful for your presence. Let us express our gratitude to him by loudly chanting 3 times Hari Bol. He says like this, he will not come. If you want him to come earlier, 1,000,000 times much louder. So we request all of you to take this time. And any other questions, or you want to talk to him, he's available for the next 2 minutes.
And the family therapist lives here. She lives here. I'm only here for 12 more hours. She'll be here.
And today evening is giving class in Jaja Temple. Today evening also we have Campus on giving an hour is giving class, you know. If you still have energy and time, please attend the timetable program. And if you are close to Canada, do attend